So the Biden administration is taking on non-compete agreements in what could be one of the most important efforts to help workers in this country in recent memory. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Reiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So my students in my classes have heard me complain about non-compete agreements for years. The idea is simple. Say you have an employee who is particularly valuable, say a software engineer who has knowledge of the internal processes that a company uses, or say you have somebody who worked for Coca-Cola who knew the formula. It's understandable that the company would want somebody like that not to go to one of their competitors. I mean, how do you think Coke would feel about the person who knows the formula going over to work for Pepsi? Probably would be a problem. But in recent years, non-compete agreements have become, well, overused would be an understatement. Across the country, about 30 million people are covered by them, and that includes a lot of people who do not hold critical positions in which they are exposed to the company's trade secrets. I mean, I heard that my Jimmy John's employees were covered by non-compete agreements. Now, I gotta tell you, I like Jimmy John's subs, but I can't imagine that somebody going from Jimmy John's, making subs there, to making subs at Subway will have some kind of grand impact on the ability of Jimmy John's to compete in the marketplace. Ironically, already some states have completely banned them, while a whole host of other states, including my home state of Michigan here, have severely curtailed their application. But there are some states where they are still enforceable. So we actually have the ability to kind of compare what happens as a result of these non-compete agreements. And the verdict is in. Non-compete agreements hold down wages for employees. Estimates are that as much as $250 to $300 billion is being taken away from America's employees by employers as a result of these non-compete agreements. This effort is being led by Biden's chair of the Federal Trade Commission. She's basing this move on the Federal Trade Commission Act, which originally passed Congress in 1914. Section 5 of that act allows the Federal Trade Commission to step in and address actions by companies that are anti-competitive in nature. I mean, in theory, the idea is, in America, at least so I thought, that we're going to allow the markets to make choices, right? You've got the labor market, which includes employees on one side, employers on the other side. They have a job, they bargain over wages, and everybody's happy, right? That's at least the theory. The problem is, if there's a non-compete agreement, then the employee suddenly doesn't really have the ability to do any bargaining. If they leave their company to either go to work for somebody else or to start up a competing company, then their former employer is going to sue them. That's been shown to have a negative effect both on the economy and on innovation. The argument that the Chamber of Commerce and others are making in favor of these agreements is that they encourage the employers to invest in the employees. And actually, there is some evidence to that fact. But the ability of companies then to suppress people's ability to go out and either find new jobs or to pursue new ideas far outweighs any benefit that comes from additional employee training. I mean, we have a great example of that in the case study of Massachusetts versus California. Back when I was in high school, Massachusetts had the 128 belt, basically a series of tech companies located around Route 128, which circles Boston. Graduates from MIT and other universities in the area went there and started various companies, including the Digital Equipment Company and the Lotus Corporation. And that seemed to be where the cutting edge of technology was going to happen. Silicon Valley out in California was a minor player compared to the 128 belt in Massachusetts. But there was a difference between these two states. California did not enforce non-compete agreements, whereas in Massachusetts, such agreements were fully enforced. Well, we all know how that came out. In Massachusetts, innovation stalled, while out in California, it accelerated. Non-compete agreements stopped superstar employees from going from one place to another and essentially spreading their ideas around, creating the germination of innovation that occurs throughout a region. But at least employees like that, you can kind of say, well, there's some basis for a non-compete agreement. For an $11 an hour security guard, it just makes no sense. I'm pretty sure that the skills the security guard has at one employer are pretty much the same skills that the security guard would have at the other employer. And in fact, there's a case right on that point, which is that a security guard at one point tried to leave their employer where they were earning $11 an hour to go to an employer where they'd earn $15 an hour. They end up getting fired when the former employer threatened to sue. It gets even worse, though. Let's just say you're in a position where your job is not covered by a non-compete agreement. Well, as it turns out, economists have pointed out that non-compete agreements affect you too. Non-compete agreements are an example of a market failure within the labor market. Not only are the employees who are covered by these agreements stopped from going to another employer, but the fear of being sued actually makes it so other employers are loath to try to hire anybody. It creates extra steps that employers need to go through to make sure that someone's not covered by a non-compete agreement for fear of being sued. This added cost and burden impacts everyone's wages. I mean, remember this, the biggest way that someone can get a pay raise is by leaving their current employer and going to another. Well, if non-compete agreements stand in the way of doing it, that's how all these wages get left on the table. This is an important story that, frankly, has not gotten anywhere near enough attention. This is a key part in the Biden administration's effort to be the most pro-labor administration in recent history. And even if this effort results in lawsuits to try to stop it, which I'm sure it will, it's a worthwhile effort on the part of this administration to essentially put employers on notice that they can no longer take advantage of America's working people. Well, if you want to see more about the kind of steps that conservatives have taken to hold down the wages of America's workers, check out this video over here that I did a little while ago. They talk a good game when they say they want a free market, except when it means that someone else has equal bargaining power to them. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.